Hello, everybody, and today we're looking at another game from the Kraaifontein Open. As you can see here, we're looking at Kahill Dhevcharan's game against the Egyptian Grandmaster Adham Fawzy. And this game was played over here, second round from the end of the tournament. And Kahill was the only other player to take down the Grandmaster other than Banele, and there's big similarity between these two games and what I believe the reason for Adham Fawzy's loss. And I found this game quite interesting, and I think the reason for his loss comes on this move too. We have another c4, we have another one of these Staunton or train variations where the white can't really fight for the d4 or d5 square because he didn't play the open Sicilian and this d pawn is in the way. Although it looks like a nice Maroczy bind, you don't really have any play on these two squares, and black is going to be looking to infiltrate this square very quickly. So I'm not sure if Kahill saw Banele's game and decided by himself he got good chances. In any case, he copied the line quite similarly, and we get a position that's the same as Banele's game against Fawzy after castles, d3 and d6. Now in Banele's game, Fawzy here made the plan to go bishop e3, queen to d2, and then challenge this dark squared bishop, which is very happy in this position because of the e6 pawn that's not on e5. The only thing that's different in these two positions are these two pawns, and in this case the bishop gets nice movement. In this case it doesn't. So it made sense last when Adham Fawzy went bishop e3, queen d2, and traded off this dark squared bishop via h6. But in this game, I think maybe because of the bad taste he got from the previous game and how crucial this d4 square is, he decided to start play on the queen side, a3, e4. I think his entire direction changed and he tried something new, wanted to show himself that he can still play this opening. I went through a lot of his games, couldn't really find more places where he chose this Staunton Coltrane variation. But then again, I still need to go through some of the master games databases. I just based my study on a quick lead chess survey. So if you know that it's an opening he favors, please let me know. And also, if you do have a nice database on these games, also let me know. Okay, so we do have b6 here. Kahill, deciding to fianchetto this bishop, decides that there's enough time in this game to still do it. Doesn't want to put the bishop on d7. d7 is going to be a nice square. Both bishops are going to be on open diagonals because of the d6 and e6 squares that are not too forwards. They're not in the way of the bishops. So here we do get bishop e7. Fawzy still preparing a break on the queen side, does it b4. We have knight d4. Banele would be proud. We have bishop to e3 only now, after some play on the queen side, and some space has been made for white. And now queen to d7, queen d2. Not sure if he's going to go bishop h6, but then f5. Now we understand what queen d7 was about, supporting this square. And we have somewhat of a symmetrical kind of situation here, with these two pawns supporting the flank pawns, and they're contributing in the center. So this is black's approach. White has got something else going, but f4, still a sound move. And now f takes e4. And this game is different in the sense that after d takes e4, now white does have some communication in the center, and black doesn't have this bind, which white can't really say anything about. In any case, we do have knight ec6. What the games do have, and similar though, is this huge knight on d4, a tricky knight to take, and black's going to have some space for it still. So in that sense, Kahill realized his advantage. He did, however, open up this d file, but still this knight on d4 is spectacular. Now, the next move by Fawzy really shows that he did not enjoy his game against Banele and is opting for a different type of strategy, trying to open the position differently. He goes e5. He doesn't want anything to do with this type of bind on this knight. He'd rather give away a pawn. That's why the computer's giving a minus 0.9 evaluation. It says you've just given away a pawn. But for Fawzy, this is good. He gets some play. And yet again, not completely sure why he chose this line in the first place against Bonele. I think maybe he wanted a more positional, slower game. But now against Kahill, I'm thinking maybe he just wanted to prove to himself that um, it was himself and not the line that was at fault. But whatever. I'm not completely sure what his reasons were. But we do get e5 here, a different strategy, definitely taking some ideas into account of what is going wrong with the line. D takes e5 and now b takes c5, bringing us to an interesting position in the game. And it's here that Kahill just simply recaptures the pawn. It makes sense. You've got this bind on the knight in the center that should be good. But in fact, let's just flip the board quickly. If you just look at the position from this perspective, the top computer recommendation is actually not that hard to find. And it's a bit more of a tactical option. White just captured on c5, and your knight still has protection. So you do have a tempo to play around with. White doesn't have any immediate threats. It's not clear how he's capturing your knight on d4 without the pawn going to e5. So the move recommended is after d takes is rook a to d8. And one of the ideas in mind is that this pawn can continue capturing. It's not really posing any threats to your position, and you have just developed a rook onto this massive file. And tactically, this position's about to explode. Look at how good your bishops are, your knights are developed, your rooks on half-open files. This can only be good for black, and it's a nice little pawn sack. I think white did just give a pawn away as well, so you still equal 2 4 6 and 2 4 6. So it's not really even a pawn sack. And one of the issues is well, okay, let's just discuss all white's options in this position. Not one of them seem to be too great. Let's say he wants to capture the e5 pawn for some reason. You can start by rook takes f1, and after rook takes f1, then just simply recapturing on c5. And the position now is slightly different because this e5 pawn is definitely going to be yours. You still have this huge center, and you've developed a piece. So it's different than recapturing in the beginning with just b takes c5. So rook a8. It's different than just b takes c5. Your other options after rook a8, if white goes b6, then we do have the interesting knight takes e2 check. And well, white can't recapture with the knight, that'll just be losing a piece. So let's go queen takes. And now this very nice move, e takes f4, and you're hitting both these pieces, and you're picking up a piece, which is very nice. White's compensation, though, is this little passed pawn, but this can only be good for black. It's even going to be play on the second rank. So the only option that really seems to hold equality, and I think it's a tricky move, but one that Adham Fawzy is definitely capable of. He uses this idea as well in the game. He plays knight to e. You can play knight to e4, but you still need to go down a tricky line. It takes a lot of calculation, and at the end of the line, after this check and the trade, then we reach an endgame where black is up pawn, but it's opposite color's bishops. And this pawn is extra. It should be a draw. So tricky line, and it's usually bad when the only good line for white leads to being down a pawn and maybe fighting for a draw. So you want to play a move that puts your opponent in a situation where he needs to find that great line. In any case, rook a8, a very dynamic move, but wasn't played by Kahill. Kahill just recapturing the pawn. As I said, it makes sense. You want to keep onto this knight and solidify the position. Let's flip the board again. Fawzy now plays knight e4. That's exactly why I said just now that a move he'll be capable of centralizing a piece, going after this c5 pawn, which would be a nasty little fork. But here Kahill plays knight takes e2 check, and after queen takes e2, the nice move knight to d4, and this is pretty strong because recapturing the knight would just lead to another quite a drawish line after king h1. We get the same type of trade, and we lead into an endgame where black is up a pawn, but it's opposite side color's bishops, and should be easy for Kahill to draw. So after knight to d4, Fawzy doesn't want this, he goes queen g4, but just another little tactical thing to sort out before you go on. You can't go knight takes c5, forking the queen and attacking all these pieces. Although it looks so nice, you're going to lose to knight takes e2 check. So be careful. So in this position, yet again, the computer is recommending bishop takes d4 and going for this drawish line. But Fawzy not giving his opponent an easy day. Just want to go for something that's oversimplified and maybe more easy to play. He keeps the pieces on the board, goes queen to g4, and here we have bishop takes e4, takes e4, and rook to e8. Kahill recognizing that this knight is still a spectacular piece, and it's the same knight that gave grief in the previous game, and it's still just chilling it out on d4. Don't ever capture it because you're giving your opponent a connected passed pawn, and that will be bad. So f takes e5 and trading. So here's just one or two interesting things. King takes f1 isn't looking too fresh after this trade. Kahill recognizes that this rook will need to take, and we'll have some play on the queen side because let's just say after king takes f1, can get rook takes b1, and entering on the queen side yet again. Look at this weak pawn. So many things are reminiscent of the Vanilla game as well in this game. Things that are going wrong. And although it looks like you can maybe pick up this pawn after knight takes d4, removing the defender, black has this little intermezzo. Queen takes c4 check, and whatever the king does, we're just taking on d4. In any case, so nice captures here by Kahill. You usually want to capture when you give yourself a little bit of an advantage, and in this case, it's opening up a lot of squares for his rook on the b file. Some strong chess here. Rook takes b1, f1, and now bishop takes e5. Position's actually still quite equal, but you can definitely recognize the same crampedness that white has. Although this bishop's on a great square, what's it really doing on the queen side? And these pieces are just coordinating slightly better. But Fawzy is a strong player and will make this game as tough as possible. King h1. Getting out of the way of this knight, saying that I'm making your knight powerless. We have queen e7, and this is a nice move. Yet again, let's just flip the board to realize what is Kahill's idea here. And, well, when I was analyzing this position, I thought to myself, okay, how do you play forwards here as black? What is your idea? Do you go rook g2, rook b3, or rook b2, try and get the rook in? But honestly, after rook b3, you can maybe just see a trades, and after bishop takes, white is not doing too bad on the king side. Maybe you can just try and battery and just annoy you. Sorry, not over there. Don't want to blunder the queen. But I mean, this pawn isn't that great. You're giving white a lot of play on the king side. So really, how to play forwards here? And I think the idea is just really simple here. Just queen e7 by Kahill, saying that after bishop takes, pawn takes, I'm going to be hitting this a3 pawn with my queen. And my queen is now accessible on the dark squares as well. Just a very patient move, just gluing everything together and waiting. So we have h4. You can feel the frustration here in Fawzy's game. And now rook to b3, saying that if we trade, it's going to suit me because now this g3 pawn is weak. So small little things, just keeping the pressure there, asking Fawzy to do something, and that allowed a rook to b3, and suddenly this g3 pawn is weaker. Your opponent made the mistake for you. And Fawzy very frustrated here. We can already feel the frustration after the move h4. Now plays bishop to g5. Looks like a good move. In fact, though, tactically it actually does walk into rook takes g3 after a while, which is not too great. But first, just queen g7. You don't want to go. Didn't really check that, but I think it's just as simple as queen takes g3, just losing a piece. You don't want to do that. a rook for a bishop. Sorry, that was a bit obvious. Okay, so just moving the queen first, queen g7, and you're still coordinating on g3. And now we have bishop d5 by Fawzy. Sneaky move, trying to keep the position complicated, because after e takes, you just simply lost. Queen go to c1 check, and need to give up your queen, and that would be mate. So you can't touch the bishop. Makes sense for Fawzy to play it. Confuse your opponent a bit when he's got a minute, sorry, 3 minutes on the clock. Fawzy at this point with a minute on the clock. Let's just switch around again. Got confused with the clock. So it does seem to make sense, but Kahill could have gone for the more extravagant option. Rook takes g3, and the point is just that bishop takes e6 check, walks into king h8, and you're hitting the queen, hitting the bishop. It's just tricky for white to defend. And another thing, the queen can't go to c1 anymore, so I think that would have been a very fun line to explore. But it does make sense. You don't want to walk into this tricky check on e6 when you're playing against the GM. So just rook to b6, holding on to everything, playing with the tempo against this bishop. And now Fawzy, I think, makes a terrible blunder. Bishop e3. He's under a minute here, and the pressure, because of this opening and the comfortableness that Kahill's able to play with this position, is just getting to him. Bishop e3, attacking this knight. I don't think there's too much to do for white here. The computer is recommending queen e4. Quite a tough find, because after the trade takes, black is not supposed to play something like king h8, because that just leads to mate yet again. So you need to give back the material in this tricky way, and then we have, I think, rook e1, spinning stuff. And okay, a tricky find here, queen d e4, but definitely his own fault for getting into time pressure because of the opening choice, and then not finding a move like that. So bishop e3, rerouting, going for a concrete line, I think, but missing the fact that knight to f5 is tactically winning the game. It's got so many forks in mind. Knight g3 is one of the ideas. So after Kahill takes the 2 bishops for the rook, which you should do, I think, always. Well, in certain cases, obviously not, but 2 pieces for the rook. Fawzy's just lost because g3 is falling and move like e3 is coming. In my mind, I only saw e3. I thought maybe e3 is an okay thing to deal with because you have this little idea. You have c takes d5, and if black goes for this fork, then you're just winning. You still have this mate in 2 idea, holding everything and keeping it together. So, but unfortunately, I think Fawzy also missed that the bishop was also coordinating with this knight, and knight takes g3 is just a very strong move. So now you need to deal with all these forks, and how does Fawzy do it? Rook d1, this fork is still possible, but now just knight takes g3 check, and where are the squares for your king? King g2 is tried, but now just knight goes back, and you're threatening the same fork. I didn't really check king g1. I think it's just this bad. Now just queen f6, and you're playing forwards. But in any case, king g2, and the knight goes back, threatening e3 now. And what to do? There's not much to do. Kahill is now just completely winning. He pushes this pawn forwards, coordinates with these 2 pieces. We can get a sense of how easy it is from this side of the board. And check, another check. All the pieces are coordinating, forking queen and rook, and also now coordinating for a g2 mate. 1 check, but you step out of it. The pieces are defended. You're threatening mate. What is tried? Rook to g1. Kahill pushes the pawn forwards, d2, and after queen d6, supposedly attacking this bishop with check, just making a queen. Beautiful ending for this game, because now after rook takes, you've deflected the rook and you can deliver mate. And you have checkmated a GM. Well done, Kahill. We are proud of you, and we enjoyed your game. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to watch more of the Kraaifontein Open Chess games. They are all very exciting, and I'm looking forward to show them to you. Thanks for watching. Bye.